Today is also a special occasion because our very own CEO, he flew in to Brussels, and I hear from him it's been 30 years since he visited the city. So I hope he can see how diverse but also how vibrant our city is. I'm originally from Belgium, but I have worked in Japan for 14 years, and this summer I returned to Belgium after 40 years in Japan. So very excited to kick this off as your MC. Allow me to go a little bit over looking at the agenda for today. We'll have a welcome speech by our president, Toru Takahashi, the Globus Europe president, and then we'll have Yoshito Hori. He will talk about developing global leaders in the Technovate era. And then we'll have a Q&A session as well, which is usually the most interesting part of these type of sessions. So while listening to his speech, think of some questions that you would like to ask him, right? So we will do that together with my colleague Aiste, and then we will have a networking party with food and drinks, so I hope many of you can stay, and we'll try to end at 10 p.m. So without further ado, let me just give the word to our CEO, Toru Takahashi. Takahashi-san, dozo.
Okay, thank you, Sven. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Toru Takahashi from Globus Europe. Thank you very much for joining. This is the first Globus event in Belgium, Europe. I'm really excited. Thank you so much. We came here from Japan, and we have a big vision, and we have a sense of mission. We call a sense of mission kokorozashi in Japanese. So I'm sure you will find what kind of kokorozashi we have and who we are after hearing Hori-san's speech and Q&A sessions. He will welcome any questions, any comments, whatever. So I want you to enjoy and be relaxed, and thank you so much. So please enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toru-san. Now, we are Globus Europe, and in case you don't know, we represent one of the largest business schools in Asia, the largest business school in Japan. We provide corporate training, but we also have MBA programs. We have a lot of e-learning platforms as well. And I'm sure that many of you will get to know more about this after the event. But without further ado, let me quickly introduce you to Yoshito Hori, right? The man of the hour. Yoshito Hori, maybe you know this, but he actually went to Harvard Business School, all right, in the, I would say, late 80s, early 90s. And, he got inspiration there. And with that dream in mind, he created the largest business school in Japan. I'm also an MBA graduate, so I'm one of the students, and I'm also a lecturer now at Globus. But we also have our own venture capital firm. We're investing a lot in budding startups. But, I've known Hori-san for 12 years, and I can tell you he's committed to change. He's committed to, contributing to society. So over the years, we've done a lot of social contribution projects across Japan, especially in Mito, and he will tell you more about that. He also has 5 sons, and he's an avid swimmer. That's why he wanted to stay at the Juliana Hotel so he could swim. But I hope you get to meet him, and please ask some good questions. So, Hori-san, it's your time.
Thank you, Sven. I'm so glad to be here, to be meeting all of you in Brussels. And this is our 30th anniversary of Globus. I started Globus about 30 years ago when I was 30. And at that time, I had only about $8,000 initial capital. I used my apartment as an office, and I rented out a classroom for small basis for 3 hours for $200. And then we had 20 students. That's how Globus started. And we are so happy to announce that we are opening up Globus Europe and in Brussels. And this is the first time that I'm speaking to the audience of Europe hosted by Globus. So I'm so delighted to see you all. And when I talked at the reception, I saw quite a few of you who have come outside of Brussels. And some of you have come from Germany. How many of you have come from Germany? Thank you very much for coming. How many of you have come from Netherlands? Yeah. And what about from Switzerland? No, thank you very much for coming. Maybe other people from France as well, maybe. Yes, thank you very much for coming. So I'm so glad to be seeing quite a few of you from all over Europe. And I'm so glad to be talking about this subject of Globus. How many of you know the word Technovate? How many of you have heard for the first time Technovate? There's no wonder you have never heard of it, because the word Technovate I created myself. And then the reason I created the word Technovate is because I run a venture capital firm as well. So I invest into technology companies, and I invest for the future. What I noticed was that the management system and the new management methods and also business models of new startups coming, and then they are totally different from the past, because marketing has changed. When I learned at Harvard Business School about marketing, there was no digital marketing. And therefore, you have to come up with advertisement, and then you didn't know anybody. But right now, you know, like social media, you can click as well. And lots of things have changed. Therefore, I thought that we need to have a new management educational system. But new MBA doesn't mean a lot. And therefore, we thought that we should create a new word. And then Technovate comes from combining technology and innovate. And we created the word Technovate. It's copy mark reserved, and then Technovate. I initially thought of the word Technovation, but that Technovation was already taken by Panasonic. So we had to change to Technovate. So Technovate MBA and Technovate is already copy mark reserved, and we have the copy mark for it. Therefore, no wonder you don't know about Technovate. Let me talk about what I'll be talking about. I just talk about briefly, because not many of you know about Globis, what we have achieved in 30 years. And then the main topic is about what global leaders require today, and why open up hub for EMEA now. And this, I will talk about 3 things. And then, as Sven mentioned, whenever I get the feedback from the audience, they say that Q&A is better than my speech. Therefore, I will try to make my speech as short as possible and make the Q&A session as long as possible. So first, let me talk about Globis was founded on August 1, 1992, so it's 30 years ago, with 3 principles: contribute to society through businesses. This is the main thing that I want to do. So I want to contribute to society through business. So business is used as tools to contribute to society. Therefore, I'm educating leaders, and then I'm investing for new startups, for new industries. I'm contributing to society of new regional development in Mito and Ibaraki. And I provide opportunity to self-fulfillment. I like the word self-fulfillment and also self-actualization. I like to unleash the potential of each individual so that the energy will come out from within. Therefore, provide opportunity to all of you for the self-fulfillment, self-actualization is what I wanted to do. And realize an ideal corporate system. I used to work for Sumitomo Corporation. There's a gentleman from Sumitomo Corporation as well. But I didn't really think Sumitomo was ideal. I didn't say it's not ideal, but I thought that I could create some better organization. Therefore, I wanted to kind of a new corporate system. Those 3 pillars are the mission that I created. In just about 30 years, we have become both #1 business school and #1 venture capital in business. A landmark achievement for one of the world's top 3 economies. I never heard of anybody who has created business from scratch and made it to #1 in the advanced countries. And not only creating #1 business school, but also we have created #1 venture capital firm in Japan. So we are creating the ecosystem of people, capital, knowledge for creation and innovation. In just 30 years, we have been able to do that. And from #1 business school in Asia, we have become #1 in Japan and also in Asia in terms of the size of the classroom. Like we have 1,200 students in one class for MBA. And then therefore we have changed the target from #1 business school in Asia to the world's #1 MBA in the Technovate era. This is why we are here in Europe. We want to become #1 in the world in Technovate era. I'll talk about that later, what that it means. And making comprehensive social contribution through G1 Summit, Kibo, and Mito Ibaraki project. I don't talk about this in detail this time, but we are committed to contributing to society for the region and also for the country. So 30 years of nonstop growth, 800 employees, We have campuses in Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, Sendai, Fukuoka, Mito, and Yokohama. And then we have overseas campuses in Shanghai, Singapore, Bangkok, San Francisco last year, and now in Brussels. The seventh VC fund to be created cumulated total 200 billion yen, roughly about 1.5 billion euro, and corporate clients over 2,500 companies. Some of you here are clients, so I'd like to thank you for taking these opportunities to say thank you to you. 1,100 Japanese MBA plus 100 English MBA students enrolled in 2022, over 400 lecturers, faculty, over 220,000, now it's 250,000 active Manabi Hodai accounts, over 3,000 active Globis Unlimited accounts. This is a subscription. I talk about in details about what we do. Subscription of, it's like Netflix in study. So it's a video clips and also slideshow and animation. And it's roughly about $15 per month for studying. So patent awarded to Globis AI document evaluation system. We have 2 patents awarded. And I've never heard of any business schools who have been awarded AI patent. So we have invested heavily into AI. And so in the future, we have the vision that not only faculty, but AI will be teaching you. Therefore, we have invested heavily into technology. So we started in 2006 as an MBA. Before that, we started in 1992. And from 1992 to 2006, we have been operating under, it's not as a university. It was operated under private institution without getting accreditation from the Japanese government. 2006, we got the accreditation from the Japanese government, so we are able to issue MBA. 2006, we started with 78 students, and now we have 1,254. And this is how much we have grown from the beginning, like 1992. In 2006, we became university. And 2022, we have become 1,254. Non-stop growth. And we will be growing further. As you can see, that 1,100 in Japan, only 100 in English, and therefore there is a potential to grow overseas as well. And then we have a corporate venture capital arm, 7 funds. I wonder how many of you know of the company called Apax? How many of you know about Apax? How many people know? Private equity firm, Apax. We had a joint venture with Apax in 1999, and then we had Japanese yen 20 billion fund, and then after that, Apax has become more buyout. Therefore, we have decided to focus on the venture capital, so we became independent again. And then we are creating the next industries of Japan. And then the return has been quite good, so we are regarded as #1 venture capital in Japan. So we are obsessed with social contribution. Like we have created business school, like education, and we have created industries, and also we are holding G1 Summit, which is like a Davos in Switzerland, and JP Morgan like investing for the social contribution in company in the place called Mito in Ibaraki. And then you can see 2016 to 2022, we are contributing to society, my hometown, Mito. And we started professional basketball. We bought a professional basketball team, which went bankrupt. And that has become #1 in the first section in B1 league. And we bought a company, a broadcasting company in my hometown, Ibaraki Prefecture, to restructure the broadcasting system. And then also we have started rock festival called Lucky Fest with more than 20,000 attendants in 2 days. And we are planning to make this rock festival to become #1 in the world. That's what we are aiming to do. So, and then let me talk about the leadership. When I started Globis, I thought that I will be teaching students to be furnished with 3 skills. One is the skills to be able to understand the business frameworks of marketing, finance, and strategy, operation management, accounting, finance. And those are the key to be able to make judgment. So therefore, one is about business frameworks and theories. And second is about conceptual skills, which is like analyzing about what is going on, and at the same time making decision, and formulating strategy, and at the same time making action plan. So it's called conceptual skills. And at the same time, as a leader, you have to be able to communicate well, and you have to show a good leadership capability. And these are the three core skills that are needed for you to become great leaders. Therefore, in Globis, what we do is with CASE method, we continuously teach business frameworks like marketing, finance, strategy, as well as we force students to think and analyze. We have more than 10 students of MBA here in this room, and we are forcing them to think about what is going on in the situation where the case studies are being taught, and at the same time coming up with options, and then comparing merit and demerits, and then make decision and come up with action plan. So conceptual skills are very important. At the same time, you have to be able to communicate well, articulately. At the same time, you have to be able to lead by communicating and interacting with a good human skills. So those are the three things that are educating. However, as you know, things have become more global, and therefore you need to have a more global things. What we needed is like business frameworks, conceptual skills, and human skills, plus English skills, because I'm speaking English and you're listening in English. But here in Brussels, other people are, German, French, and also Dutch, and also German-speaking country. English skills, like global skills, are going to be needed, and global perspectives are needed, because you have to have global perspectives to decide which market to enter, which country to have factories, and which country to be focused, and where to put your R&D facilities, and then where you procure capital and the human resources. That kind of global perspectives are going to be needed. At the same time, you have to understand about more and more geopolitical issues because of the war may happen, and also there are supply chain issues, as well as the inflation. And so you need to have a good global perspectives about what is going on. At the same time, you need to have a good cross-cultural intelligence, meaning that you have to be able to communicate well with building rapport and understanding differences, and also cherishing differences in the diversities, and at the same time do not force your value to other people, and then build rapport by understanding the common ground and communicate it with wholeheartedly, with a nice emotion to come up with a good consensus basis. These are what you need as global leaders. However, recently, there's an age of chaos in terms of technology. Things have changed because of social media, and because of social media, you have to make a much quicker responses. Otherwise, there will be some kind of Twitter storms, and that will hurt your brand images. And therefore, you have to have a good ability to be able to communicate in social media, and also mobile phone. Everybody has a computer, big computer inside, and therefore, lots of things can be done in using mobile, analytics and big data and cloud computing, and also security as well, and video and virtual reality like metaverse and artificial intelligence and robotics. These are changing every aspects of industries. In case of commerce tech, it used to be department stores, but now it's Amazon. And we can see that technology is changing the champion. Used to be, let's say, Sears or Takashimaya, but now it's Amazon or Rakuten or Alibaba. Media, it used to be TV, but now it's Netflix or YouTube. So because of technology, champions will change. FinTech, it used to be banks, but maybe different technology might come for different players. And Autotech, maybe it used to be Volkswagen or Toyota, but now maybe it's Tesla or Uber. So it will change. Like in terms of market cap, already Tesla is bigger than the largest market cap company like Toyota. Health tech hospitals and also medical care changes. And EdTech used to be Harvard or Stanford or Oxford, but it's going to be Globis. So technology will change it, so that you have to understand about what the technology will do and what the technology can do to your businesses, so you can become number one in the world, even though you have nothing. And then, therefore, as you can see, all companies who have come, Netflix, YouTube, or Amazon, or Uber, Tesla, all started from scratch. And then, so your competitor will come from nowhere, and then they will become the strong competitors. In case of education, I believe that Stanford, Oxford, or Harvard will be challenged by Coursera, Udacity, Udemy, or like a Globis. It's going to be a totally different, competition. And therefore, and then that kind of technology will be only, we say winner take all. One company, or maybe two, that's it, exists. Now, in case of search engine, it's only Google. In case of, let's say, Twitter, like social media, it's maybe a lot like Facebook or Twitter's. But in case of, let's say, e-commerce, it's only Amazon. So, and then in each industry, there will be one or maybe two, champions. And it's either you or other companies. That's what we are aiming to become number one in Technovate era as MBA. That's what we are planning to do. So, but in any case, in this environment of Technovate, what you need is Technovate knowledge. In Globis, we teach our students about basics of programming. At the same time, we have to understand algorithms. What is AI can do, and we have to understand about what kind of system architecture we can build. So Technovate knowledge, and you have to understand what social media will do, AI will do, and that kind of, you have to understand what the basic understanding about social and also mobile. And then Technovate skills is using those Technovate framework and then apply that for new business models, and then using that big data as well as and also social media, using mobile and also AI, what can be done. Understanding about Technovate skills and Technovate communication. When I was at Harvard, I used to learn about how to write a letter. But you don't write a letter any longer. It's more like a social media. And also making a speech, I learned about making a speech, but nowadays it's more like a video clip. And you have to, you have to be impactful in a short period of time. And you have to spread it out in a timely manner. So Technovate communication is what is going to be needed. So we have come up with, I mentioned about Technovate MBA to explain about new MBA. Is that like a Technovate thinking is about programming algorithm, and Technovate strategy is understanding about what the technology can do to form new business models like Uber, or like let's say Airbnb or Tesla, or you name it, or Netflix. By understanding about the new models, you can kind of like assume what kind of new business model will arise in your industry. And that's how we came up with Globis Unlimited. Globis Unlimited concept came from by looking at Netflix and Spotify. Music has become Spotify, so you don't buy CD any longer. It's more like a subscription. It's a free. No, it's not free, but you pay monthly fee, and then you have unlimited access to music. The same, a movie has become Netflix. You pay monthly fee, you have unlimited access. Books, what's going to be the books? Is it going to be like e-books? But when I talked, because we have invested heavily into MBA series books, we have invested heavily into updating like every 5 years for the books as well. But when books becomes online, I don't want to read e-books. I prefer to be information to be much richer by having more video clips, because that will have much more impact with your eyes and also animation and slideshow with music and with your sound as well. And then that has when I did some research, the impact to the brain is much bigger, not just by reading text. It's bigger by listening to some sound, at the same time watching the video clips, and that has a bigger impact onto the brain. Therefore, we came up to the concept of unlimited access to our video clips and also animation and slideshow so that you can learn your, like we call micro learning for 5 minutes for one course. And then that is all you can learn from smartphones as well as PC and tablets. And we started that Globis Unlimited by knowing about techno-based strategy, because we can assume what kind of industry, what kind of new business model come up from your industry, and then the incumbents like Harvard and Stanford, what kind of new champion would be arising. So therefore, like a techno-based strategy, design thinking, data science for business, digital marketing, psychology, emotion-driven innovation, creative leadership. We have come up with tons of new techno-based courses. Therefore, by looking at those business models, MBA have to change. And then if you look around in all the business schools, they tend to be too slow in changing the way the curriculum is being formed, and also they're too slow in the way of their delivering. We have started, Globis MBA started in 2002 with Japanese language, 2006 with Japanese language. 2009 we started English part-time MBA. 2012 we started full-time MBA. 2016 we started online MBA. Therefore, we thought that education will become totally online even before COVID-19. And then the reason why we thought of changes is because I've been thinking about what the education will look like in 2040 or 2050. It won't be the same as before because technology is changing every industries. So the education industries will be changed as well. Therefore, we have invested by increasing the number of engineers from 0 to we have more than 200 engineers in Globis, and they are creating new platform and also some apps as well. And then they are creating, and also we have invested into everything on AI, and we are thinking about the future of education. And I didn't think that COVID will come. However, COVID has accelerated the growth of online, and therefore we thought that the future will come in 2030s or 2040s, but future has come earlier. And then we have quite a few students who have never come to Globis on campus, but graduated by taking online courses as well. And we are kind of like native in online as well. We can switch. Whoever can speak English can get on to English MBA. And then whoever, like we're starting pre-MBA as well. And the pre-MBA is like, you don't have to apply for 2-year MBA. You can take one course, we call it pre-MBA. So you can test whether or not you like it or not. Before even taking a pre-MBA, we have Globis Unlimited. And we have started Nano MBA with using online Globis, and then using AI as well, and then taking a course of Globis University. So not just the MBA as we know it changing, the MBA gains global dimensions and then goes online. We talked about these changes on AI, and physical classrooms will disappear, paper will disappear. So when you think about the drastic disruption, the easiest way, the best way to think about is total opposite. Used to be classroom, there will be no classroom. Used to be some textbook, there will be no textbooks. There used to be faculty, there will be no faculty. So that kind of disruption will come from total changes or total denial of the incumbent. That's what we have been trying to do. So, and also learning management system, and go to reach this stage, therefore 3 hubs in Asia, so we have gone global. Not only Japan, but also 3 hubs in Asia, English MBA, online MBA, Globis Unlimited, and we talked about Nano MBA. So when I talk about the new leaders, what we need is this basic business frameworks and concept skills, human skills, as well as the global capabilities, as well as techno-based capabilities. These are what you need. However, what is important is the core of the human being. The core of human being is knowing about yourself, knowing about who you are, and then knowing about where you are. And that's what we call 5 perspectives. Global perspectives is knowing about why you are in Brussels, why you are in Switzerland, why you're in Tokyo, and then historical perspective, why in 2022, and what your mission is. And you have to understand, like a global perspective is like X and Y axis, like latitude and longitude. Z axis is like time, 2022, 2018. And then we are in the midst of evolution, so we have to think about what's going to happen in the future. Philosophy is knowing about what you value a lot. Each one of us should have each one of philosophy. And there's only one life. Why don't we live in our own philosophy, not rely on other people's philosophy? So I think it's good to think about your own philosophy. And the integrity is knowing about what is right and what is wrong. And then it's not compliance of law. Law is being decided by the parliament or Congress. And however, it changes in history at the same time. It changes and it varies in the countries that you live in. But integrity is more universal. Like you decide what is right and what is not right. And even though it might be legal, but you might want to do. You might not want to do it because it's against your integrity. So integrity is very important to knowing about, judging about what is right and what is not right. And philosophy is important to know about what is you value and what you don't value much. And historical perspectives and also global perspectives. A sense of mission is the core of Globis in a way that to know kokorozashi. It's in Japanese called, it means like, it's more like a personal mission statement. Kokorozashi, knowing about kokorozashi, it's more about knowing about why you're born and how you want to use your life for. And you need to have a sense of direction of which way you want to go. I've been looking for my kokorozashi for a long period of time, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So therefore, after I graduated from university, I went to work for Sumitomo Corporation. When I got MBA, I thought I should become an entrepreneur and then create a business school so that I can educate more leaders as well. And that's a kokorozashi. But knowing your kokorozashi, this tremendous energy will come from within. And so that that will help you overcoming any kind of difficulties or adversities. So sense of mission is what you need to become the leader. So this is what the 5 perspectives is the core of your human being. And then on top of it, you can furnish your skill set by studying at Globis. And then, like getting exposed to Globis Unlimited. And that's what we want to do. So then why open up a hub for EMEA now? We started Globis in Tokyo, Japan, and then we have 5 main campuses and 2 sub-hub campuses in Japan. And we have China started in 2012. Globis Singapore, we started in 2012. And Globis Thailand, we started about 2 years ago. And we started Globis USA last year and Globis Europe. Up until 2020, we have been focusing on becoming #1 business school in Asia. Therefore, we focus a lot more on the Asia side. But in 2020, we changed our goal from #1 business school in Asia to #1 business school in the world in Technobay era. In Technobay era, that means we don't try to become like Harvard, Stanford, or Oxford. We try to become like a new animal in business school using technology. And for that purposes, we came up to the concept of time zone. I told you that we have been teaching online MBA. But online MBA is being taught in Japan time zone. Therefore, we have noticed that quite a few students are coming from the US, but they have to adapt, they have to adjust to Japanese time zone. Therefore, they sometimes wake up in middle of the night or in the morning or daytime to study at Japan's time zones. And the same comes true for EMEA time zones. They have to adjust themselves to the Japanese time zone. So instead of forcing them to adjust to Japanese time zone, why don't we become more flexible to provide 2 different time zones to cover so that those who are studying from Mexico, USA, can study at America's time zone. Those who are studying in Brussels and also Switzerland, they can study in EMEA time zones. So that's what we wanted to do. Therefore, Globis Europe is being established. And then at the same time, we have never had any offices in Europe. However, we have had quite a few students coming from Europe to study for full-time MBA. But I thought we should have a good campuses, to communicate to the potential MBA candidates in Europe. At the same time, we have been training like Honda, Toyota, and also Yamaha, and all those Japanese companies in Japan, but they have become global, so we have been at the same time providing education in a global arena, and therefore we thought that we should have a Brussels office. And then the reason why we have chosen Brussels is because Brussels is such a beautiful city. At the same time, Sven and I stay over there. They are Belgian, and they have decided to choose the Brussels office. And then, so therefore, from Belgium, the heart of Europe, to Central and Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, our mission continue to develop visionary leaders who create and innovate societies. With that, I'd like to stop, and then we'd like to go on for Q&A sessions. In any company, what is important is to adjust and adapt. I believe in this theory of evolution. Theory of evolution will tell you that those animals who have been living now is not because they are strongest, or not because they are the smartest, but they are the ones who adjust and adaptation of the climate change and everything. So I believe that all the companies have to adapt. Adaptation is the most important aspect of the evolution of the companies. So far, if you look at Kodak versus Fujifilm, or US Steel versus Nippon Steel, you can see the Japanese companies are good in adaptation and changing and using technology to advance. So I think what you have to do is to keep on adapting yourself to the changes happening and thinking about what will be the future. Because if you see, I show you that there will be, champion will be changed. I recently read a news that Seibu and Sogo have closed the department stores because they lost against the competition of Amazon or Rakuten. That kind of things could happen to any industries. Like incumbent in the past leaders may lose against the competitor from nowhere. I'm not sure what's going to happen to pharmaceutical companies, but there will be new startups who will be coming up with new technology, and at the same time will be providing new medicines using online. And then there might be fabless companies, or you never know. So what you have to do, in my sense, is that like what I am doing, trying to transform yourself from the past, and then adapt yourself using the technology, any kind of technology, to take a lead position in any industry that you're in. I think that's what is very important. So you have to keep on changing. Not only your product or services, but also you have to change your organizational structure, because the mindset of employees are changing. The power balance has shifted from company to employees, because the professionals can choose whichever company he or she wants to work for. So therefore, organizational changes has to happen at the big corporations. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you very much. It's also new, but also old issues, because we have seen factory automation happen, and those works who had been formerly managed by workers are being taken over by robots, and has become automated. when I went to the factory of Fanuc, I was quite surprised to see there was nobody working on the factory. And then robots are creating the robots, producing the same robots. It's like a very, like a very weird. It's like a 22nd century movie, seeing the robots creating the same robots. And then, so therefore, what happened to those workers who have been creating the products, and they had been reskilled, and then they have been relocated, and then in Japanese system, nobody been fired, and then they have to be relocated, reskilled, and to be working in value-added jobs. And that happened also in, let's say, in JR, like a railway system. We have seen quite a few, like in about 10 or 15 years ago, I've seen quite a few staffs cutting the tickets, like click, click, click. But we don't see that any longer. Like there's nobody, and those people, jobs have gone, but those people have been reskilled, retrained to be working on more value-added human relationship, business. Nobody has been fired. I think the same things will keep on happening, and that is quite good for human being, because human being. I think all of us watch the, modern times, of Charles Chaplin, doing this. Human beings had to be used to work in a very harsh environment, but now they have become unleashed from that harsh environment and work in a much nicer and safer jobs. And that's going to happen to every aspect of the industries, and which is quite good. And then when I see in Japan, whenever we talk about AI and robotics, it's always positive tone, because we all know that nobody will lose jobs. But in Europe and the US, whenever they talk about AI and robotics, there are resistance, because they know that some people will be fired. So it's not more about it's not more about HR issue. It's more about social security, security issue. And I think the companies should show that the jobs are secured, and the employees will be retrained, so that they will be shifted to much more value-added jobs, so that they can get much higher salary. I think that's going to happen. So eventually, what the human beings will do is more about, let's say, it's difficult to overtake jobs or restaurants, like and also like we call essential workers, will be still human beings. The salary of those will become higher, and because that is going to be higher in terms of value added. But in case there may be some kind of low, service, fast food restaurant, there will be more like different types of services. And but overall, I think the direction that we're heading is a good way. And in case of Japan, we have a declining population. Therefore, we have to use AI and robotics to be able to replace what human beings have been doing. Thank you for your question. I've done lots of interviews for students who have come from overseas to study at Globis MBA. And the reason why they come to Japan to study is because they love Japan. But at this moment, we are only able to attract those segments of people who love Japan. And but we have to go beyond those who love Japan to those who are wanting to study at Globis, and that will be the challenge. But at this moment, we are targeting, I think, those of you who have come here are those people who, I think, like Japan and have some kind of connection or some kind of good emotional feelings towards Japan. That's why you're here. But most of you don't know about Globis yet. And therefore, most of the students who come to Globis, they will first want to come to Japan, and they will search and find there's a Globus, and they come to Globus because they want to have some kind of reasons why they want to come to Japan. And when I ask them why they like Japan, it's like a game, and sometimes animation and manga, mostly that, and which is not bad, and also the culture of Japan is attracting, and but we need to be going beyond that segment to be able to tell students that they want to come to Japan because of Globus, and that's what we want to be. We want to become one of the attracting contents for Japan. Why Globus? Because it's a Technovate, and because of Kokorozashi, it's a totally different segment, and it's also very practical, and it's very entrepreneurial, and it's a totally different animal compared to Harvard or Stanford. Because Harvard and Stanford tend to become more, old. I shouldn't say old, but maybe different. So therefore, we are here in Brussels. I'm hoping that Aiste, Toru, and Sven will be able to communicate those beyond those people who love Japan. About 10 years ago, there was a study done by Doyukai. Which is like one of the strong CEO business community, and trying to find out what is the strength of Japan. And they went back to the history of Japan, and there are 2 or 3 distinct features of Japan. One is that it's agriculture-based societies, and then second is that it's mostly island-based. It's not like continent. Therefore, we don't have much, foreign threat coming in. Therefore, we tend to have a very harmonious and mono culture and being built in Japan. And therefore, those 2 are very distinct features of Japan that has transcended for Japan to become more and more community-based. Like in agriculture-based, you have to cooperate, and you need to have continuous improvement of any kind of things that you do. And at the same time, you don't have to communicate well because we are in one small culture. Therefore, there's strength and weakness. In terms of weakness, is that we are not good in communication. Because we didn't have to communicate too much because we call it like people will sense about what I wanted to do. Therefore, people will understand. Therefore, we didn't have to explicitly communicate in Japan. That's a weakness. Second weakness we had was that we didn't have to have a strategy because there was no war competing. There was no threat coming in. So we didn't have to do strategy too much. At the same time, we didn't have to do much negotiation because if you go to Middle East, you always have to negotiate every time. But in Japan, you don't have to negotiate. It's more like in the same harmonious culture, you don't have to negotiate too much. However, the strength is that it's more like attention to details, communication, and community-based, and also more product and also creation, like a product-based. And then we have 4 seasons as well. So that has become the strength. So all in all, the strength is that it's a community-based, harmonious society, and at the same time, there's a emphasis on the value and ethics because of the Confucius thought, and also Buddhism. Is different from what you see in Europe, and at the same time, it's the people tend to be nice, and so the strengths come. At the same time, you have to have always adapting to the changes. That's the strength that we see, but we are not that strong in strategy, and we're not strong in communication or negotiation. And at the same time, we're not that strong in global expansion, because we're not so good in English communication. Therefore, the strength that we had so far, as you can see, is Toyota, Honda, Sony. You don't have to communicate. The product itself will tell you. And also Nintendo as well, game and animation and manga. Those are the strengths that we have. And also some, however, our weakness is that we are not strong in professional service companies like law firm, accounting firm, consulting companies, because you need to be able to communicate well. And then, those are not so strong. But product basis and also business model basis, I think we are strong. Most of the companies who are globally based, I'm talking about Japanese companies, and then are capable to transform because they had been doing it for the past 40, 50, 100 years. And then continuous transformation is based on how much you invest onto R&D. Japanese companies invest a lot onto R&D. And at the same time, you always have to keep eyes on what is going on in the world and the new development. So number one, R&D. Second is also how much you invest into your reskilling of your workforce. And that's, most of the companies that we deal are very passionate about educating leaders from within, like corporate education. That's very important, because there are two ways to change. One is from outside forces like consultant. The other is from within. But if you rely on consultants, they won't do execution. So the execution will be done from the workforces within. Therefore, the best way for return on investment is to do corporate education within for reskilling your company's workforces, and then continuous improvement, continuous transformation, and then it's needed. Thirdly, I think the sense of urgency of the leadership. Whenever I talk to the leaders of big corporations, they have a strong sense of urgencies. However, whether or not the sense of urgencies are being shared among the whole corporate staffs are questionable. So I think to answer question three, one is the R&D for continuous transformation. Second is the human resources, corporate education, and third is sense of urgencies. I think those three are going to be needed for the continuous transformation. Thank you for your question. There are 5 totally unique aspects of Globis. By the way, I believe in differentiation or uniqueness. The success will rely on doing things totally different from others. If you try to do things the same as others, you'll not be standing out. So we try to be totally different from other business schools in 5A. One is that we ask for faculty who have practical background. Let's say for other business schools, they are also mostly taught by PhD academic faculty. But in case of Globis, in case of marketing, let's say CMO of companies are teaching you about marketing. In case of finance, the investment banker or CFO of companies are teaching you about finance. In case of strategy, consultants are teaching you about strategy, which is more practical, and then therefore there's a practical aspect. Every faculty have a practical background. That's number one. Second is that we provide service guarantee. We call quality guarantee. So if you enroll in Globis, if you take one course, if you don't like it after you take 2/3 of the courses, we pay back tuition unconditionally. So we've been doing this for the past 30 years, what we call quality guarantee. No other business school I've heard of have provided this quality guarantee. We are also providing this to corporate training as well. Therefore, that will show you how we are committed for the quality of education. And therefore, we didn't have any brand name compared to Keio, Waseda, Harvard. And therefore, we had to commit to the quality of education. That's how we are able to grow. Third is that we are committed for entrepreneurship, create, innovate. Other business schools are mostly the attachment of big universities like Harvard, Stanford, Keio, Waseda, Oxford. But in case of Globis, we started from scratch, and I created myself. So therefore, you can see that there is a strong DNA of entrepreneurship vested onto Globis. Therefore, there's strong entrepreneurial focus is what we are totally different from. Fourth is that we focus a lot on kokorozashi, not only teaching about skills, but also we are energizing our students to be able to knowing about what they want to do in the future. Therefore, they will have a strong passion and knowing about what direction he or she wants to go. So focus on kokorozashi is fourth thing. Fifth thing is that there are no other business schools which provide this venture capital in this scale. Therefore, we call Technovate is a totally different. So 5 things is totally different. Practical and also quality guarantee, entrepreneurship, kokorozashi, and Technovate. That make totally different business schools from others. Japanese companies are evolving in a very fast way. And let's say talking about like a female workforce. And there are more and more female leadership coming up. It takes time. But because of womenomics, mentioned, exercised by Prime Minister late Abe, and I think it has changed drastically. And at the same time, there will be more and more non-Japanese foreign staffs, professionals will be working in Japanese companies. And that's happening. So, but the biggest difficulty is language, because of Japanese language. But more and more companies are adopting English as the official language. And otherwise, it will be difficult to incorporate diverse leaders into leadership of the corporations. But it will happen. But at the same time, it is important to maintain the same culture and philosophy and also uniqueness. And by doing it, that will happen. But gradually, I think that will come. Recently, Facebook has announced that they had invested $200 billion per year for metaverse, and they are not making money at all. And they have been criticized by the shareholders for making such a loss without strong potential to become successful. My partner in venture capital, called Alan Patrikov, has mentioned that he has invested in virtual reality technology in 1984. In 1984, 36 years ago, he has invested in virtual reality technology. And then we all believe that that will happen in the future, virtual reality, metaverse, but we never know when. And because he has been investing from 36 years ago. And so that's my view. It's a good technology, and it has a potential, but I'm not really sure whether it's going to become commercially profitable. And therefore, in education, there is a potential for using metaverse. However, in leadership, like a Globis, it won't be that practical to be doing it. It may be more practical using for more like a factory-based, more like a skill-related. However, I'm not really sure whether that's the best way to be doing it. So it's a good technology, but at the same time, not many people want to put headset on, not because of the cost, because of their comfortableness. And that's my view about the metaverse and virtual reality technology. As a leader, you learn about some aspects of accounting, but you don't have to become an accountant. You only have to know about the concept of accounting and basic of the ledger, and then you understand about what kind of like cost accounting and also financial accounting, and also what kind of control is going to be needed. The same come to the legal aspect. You don't have to be a lawyer, but you have to understand about basic contract and basic aspects of legal belief, and also what kind of negotiation you have to do. The same come to programming. You don't have to be a programmer, but you have to understand about basic programming and then what can be done. And the same is for AI. You don't have to be a data analyst, but you have to understand how to use data analytics for what kind of data are going to be needed, how you're going to be collecting it, and then what can be done with those data. And the role of the manager is to use those professionals, lawyer, accountant, programmer, AI, engineer, data analytics, or some apps producer, designer. So you have to have a basic, it's more like a general manager, right? So you have to understand about those. Otherwise, you have to rely on those people's proposal. One thing you don't want to do is to just rely on other people's advices and do it. You always have to understand about whether it is right or not. So you have to understand about whether or not he or she, as an engineer, is telling you it's right or not. And in order to do that, you have to understand the basic of it. That's what we are teaching at Globis. I should have mentioned about ESG aspect because we have opened up a new courses on ESG. But today's topic was about Technovate. And so I talked more about Technovate innovation and what kind of transformation is needed for companies. But I should mention about more about ESG because we recently opened up ESG course, and we put a lot of focus on the sustainability and also more about environment as well. And but this time I didn't talk about because it might become more and more diverted into other discussions. But I should have talked about it. Thank you very much for mentioning it. We should focus a lot and talk a lot more about that aspect as well. Well, we have quite a few Globis MBA students who have studied online only. And the research we have done, both online and also in person, we see that the contents, understanding of the contents, also skill development, is almost the same for online and also in person. But in case of in person, you can network more, you can have chat, and you can have more and more inspiration coming from discussions. But in terms of the quality of education itself is almost identical to in-person and online. And however, the benefit of online is that you don't have to commute. And you can hack in from anywhere you like. And you can get the same benefit of education. However, the benefit of in-person is like this. You can network afterward. You can meet people. You can feel it. So that's also the benefit. So there are also pros and cons of online and in-person. I think we believe that it's important to give the option for anybody. It's the option of learning online or in person, and at the same time, learning about any courses. I think our role is to give the option to other people, and the users decide whether which one is good or not. as you can see, the volume of students have been going up. However, we see the differences in terms of the Generation Z or Generation X, so I think so far, generation-wise, it hasn't been so much difference. Even though we started from the time that we didn't have any internet, 1992, we didn't have any internet. And initially, we had sent out direct mails, and then we had 20 students came up. And gradually, we had internet, and then we have social media, and then we have quite a few generation changes in terms of the technology, in terms of social media, in terms of connectivity, in terms of also about the easiness to study as well, like using. So far, we haven't seen so much differences in generation. But nowadays, as the mentioned about the more and more emphasis on sustainability and also environment, and also focus more on the social entrepreneurial aspect, and we see those happening. But at the same time, there are more and more people who want to become entrepreneurs as well. But I would say that there are more and more diverse dimensions in societies, and which is good. So everybody is different, and everyone wants to be different. Our role is to provide the option for students to learn whatever they want to learn. And our mission is to educate leaders to solving problems of societies. I believe that entrepreneurship and businesses' role is to solve the problems of societies. And then businesses exist to provide better services for the users as well. So more and more leaders are being educated. More and more problems of the societies are going to be solved. And then the leaders are the only ones who are able to do that. I've been attending World Econ Forum Davos. And Davos has had Global Agenda Council of 67 or 68 Global Agenda Council. And they talk about what are the issues of the globe. They talk about climate change. They also talk about energy. They talk about the food and also regional crisis. And they talk a lot of things. And all the councils come up to one simple solution, which is we need good leaders. We need good leaders and also good governance to be able to change that, because I'm not sure whether G20 is functioning well, or they are not sure whether UNA is functioning well to solve, or COP27 whether or not it's functioning well or not. It's all up to the leaders. So if we provide education to for the leaders to be able to lead and solve problems, our role is to provide that so that more and more problems of the society will be changed. And that mission will not change in generation at all. I always believe that it's up to the size, scale. And if you talk about Amazon, or if you talk about, let's say, Tesla or Uber, any kind of businesses, the scale does matter. And therefore, the judgment by whether or not it's number one or not is a scale. The scale will increase by providing good services and good quality education, and then scale will come to those who are providing good educational system. And that's what I believe in. So the reason why the scale is so much important is that if you have a good scale, you can make investment into technology as well, and you can invest into branding as well, and also you can invest into more and more good facilities, and also you can invest into scholarship as well, and you can also invest into sustainability, and also you can invest into more and more about social goods and social contribution. So Technobay era number one is going to be judged on the scale, and then we have been working hard for Globis Unlimited. We'll see how it goes. I think the history will tell whether or not we have been successful or not, and you are all the people who will be judging about whether or not Globis will do or not. But I think it's important to be. One thing is important is I think it's good to be making efforts to be reaching to be number one in the world. And Technobay era, we try to be different. If it's the same with other schools, we won't be chosen. It's good to be different, and it's good to be advanced. It's good to be technology-oriented, and it's good to be Technobate. That's what we are. And with that, I'd like to have some closing remarks. Thank you very much for it's been about 1.5 hours, right?
1.5 hours
Wow,
of the conversation.
I'm so happy to be able to have the chances to have a dialogue with you. And Globis Europe has been officially been launched. And Sven and Aiste and Toru and Cecilia are the ones who are managing it. I hope you'll be the one to be supporting them. And I hope we keep on seeing each other to see how Globis Europe will evolve. With that, I'd like to close my speech, and thank you very much for coming, and I hope to network with you afterward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.